Hi, good morning. I think we're going to go ahead and just get started half of a minute early here. We have a lot of content that we want to jam into these 50 minutes, so I think we're just going to go ahead and get rolling. Thank you all for instinctively moving forward. We were discussing like, oh, do we need to ask people to come up to the front? Thank you all for being wonderful participants and moving up. We appreciate it. I guess just to start with introductions before we dive in with everything, my name is Liz Fujita. I recently rejoined Michigan Tech in Career Services in the role of Assistant Director for Academic and Career Integration. And we'll talk about what that means shortly.
Yeah. Oh, guess I'll use the mic and be a little bit more official. My name's Travis Wakeham. I have a kind of half position in biological sciences, an assistant teaching professor. And then my other half is part of the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Education as the advising coordinator. So kind of being involved, helping to improve our advising program and also being a part of implementing essential education.
And I'm Melissa Michelson. Is this working? So what do I have to do to make it? Okay, so I'm Melissa Michelson. I am the Assistant Director for Career Development and Education. What that means is that I work with students to help them get ready for a career after they graduate.
Perfect. So just to help us maybe frame a little bit of what we're going to talk about in a few minutes here, just to get us a pulse on who's in the room, who here are our faculty here at Michigan Tech? Okay, great. How about staff? Okay, hello. Educators from other institutions, K-12 or other higher ed? Anybody from? Okay. How about community organizations? Wonderful, thank you all for coming. And business and industry, local or otherwise? Okay. Anybody I didn't capture in these categories? Okay, that is helpful, thank you all. So that was a little teaser. I always like to give people a heads up as you settle into a conference session that this will be interactive. We are going to ask you to talk to us and talk to each other. So if you need a minute to digest that fact, now you have that warning. This will be interactive. We don't want to talk at you the whole time. So a little bit of context of how we want to approach this conversation about coaching students to success in some of these conversations. And a little bit about why we are all collaborating. Obviously, we are from different functional areas, and that is sort of a key element of essential ed. But one of the big reasons is that we really do feel like we are trying to accomplish a lot of the same things, right? So essential education is sort of spanning into all of these areas of campus. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take the community. It's going to take faculty and staff and everybody. And that's honestly a space where we operate in career services as well, right? We obviously serve students when they come and meet with Melissa and her team, or they go to the fair. We obviously have relationships with the employers who are here looking for our Huskies, but there's also the campus side element of that, of how are we working with certain departments to figure out what they need, who's keeping faculty and staff informed about what's going on in career services, and that's where kind of my role comes in, a little bit less directly student-facing than Melissa and less employer-facing than Jim, who is over on another panel. So for those of you who are faculty and staff, probably we'll be talking a lot of how we can all better serve our students. So that's just a little context of why we're all here. And also just thinking about what we do in career services and the way we're trying to improve our ecosystem on campus with you all is basically the same thing as what essential ed is setting out to do. We are all trying to accomplish, I think, at its core, a very similar thing, which is to help students not only succeed in the classroom and in their major courses, but also to develop their skills in other ways, right? Those life and professional skills through hands-on experiences and equipping them for whatever is going to come next. Obviously, there's a little bit of a bent on career, but that applies to graduate school and anything that they're going on to do. And we want to sort of get ourselves out there, break out of the walls of the Career Center and be more integrated in campus. And again, that's just very in line with what essential ed is kind of after. So that's where we're coming in. And the last sort of piece of context, I guess, I wanted to give you is what's called the NACE competencies. So in terms of career readiness and career skills, we think about these 8 things, right? Career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, technology, and what NACE still has listed as DEI. Here we've called it social and global fluency, same idea. And then comparing that with the 12 essential abilities for essential education, it was not difficult to start thinking about this as, okay, what are we trying to do? What is our career services office hoping to impart on students and help them develop through the work that we do with you all? And what is essential ed hoping to accomplish? And what do we as a campus and a community want our students to leave Michigan Tech with? Don't worry, I'm not going to make you look at every single example of how I think these tie in. But it took about 4 seconds of thinking about this to realize that really we're all in this together. So that's kind of what our background. Do you want to add anything on here?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say that it's, I think, very kind of obvious to know that career services is not the only place that this is happening, right? I mean, anybody who touches students in one way or another, whether it's working in student affairs, residential education, any kind of student advising, any kind of instruction, we're all working really for the same goals. And I have a feeling that we could all have a list of very similar competencies that we're striving to instill in our students, no matter who it is and what our roles are.
Absolutely. Yeah, and through this, we don't want to say that we are the end-all be-all of how we collaborate in all these areas. It's more very much a yes and, like we really agree and are trying to figure out how we all achieve this together. So moving more into the directly what this session is for, right? How do we interact with students? How do we coach them to success in better ways with new essential ed stuff? I think Travis is gonna sort of take over here.
Maybe I'll do. Okay.
There we go.
We can get creative over here. So in a lot of your roles, I'm sure you're meeting with students in a variety of ways, whether that is a one-on-one meeting, maybe leading a group discussion, leading a class. But we wanted to ask all of you, in your own experience, what makes that successful interaction? What kind of makes you feel like you left that interaction with a student like, all right, I think we got somewhere. That was good. What are some things that you're kind of looking for in that?
Maybe for the sake of our audio, do you want to float with the mic or repeat as people call stuff out? I don't know what works better.
Yeah, Matt?
Active listening.
All right. Yeah.
Measuring their success in goal setting.
Yeah.
Curiosity.
Easy.
The student has a better understanding of their own goals.
All right.
Say it's a two-way communication, not just one way.
Yeah.
Just coming out of the interaction with the student feeling like they were heard and validated.
Kelly.
Connection.
Anything else that we want to add to the list?
Yeah.
Student knows their next steps.
Awesome. All right.
I like this.
Beautiful. So I think this actually goes really nicely into our next point here. We wanted to kind of see what's currently happening, some things that we're thinking about. But I also wanted to provide a little bit of a framework. So of course my background within academic advising, and this is kind of pulled from an ACADA resource, which is a national organization kind of setting some standards for academic advising and looking at how do we structure a successful advising session. And a lot of these things that you had mentioned kind of coming up within this. But I think oftentimes within our busy work, we maybe forget about that framework and maybe forget to be intentional about some of those things. So maybe placing that within that framework kind of helps us to make sure that we are moving through that. And it's important to note that having that institutional knowledge of different programs, or if we're looking at advising in particular, degree requirements, is not the end all be all of everything. Actually, that wasn't even a point that we brought up. I think it's something, of course, really important, but there's a lot more to structuring that student interaction or advising session than just that too. In addition, we're really looking at some effective interpersonal skills, communication, and really assisting students through that. But at the beginning of this, it's really about building that connection, that relationship with students as well. So the first part, which sometimes we get a little too ahead of ourselves, is actually planning and preparing for that advising session and understanding when working with students that scheduling an appointment may not be something that they automatically do. And sometimes we have to be a little bit more proactive about reaching out and then scheduling those connection points as well. And before that, we want to try to learn as much about the student as possible, building upon previous interactions, and recognizing as much as we want to plan ahead, there's also a lot of spur of the moment student meeting in the hallway, maybe seeing somebody at an event, or maybe while you're doing your shopping at the co-op or Walmart, for instance. But also recognizing that we really want to encourage that kind of planning ahead, scheduling, and kind of instilling that within our students. But once we actually get to that interaction, really thinking about how we kind of go through this interaction. And it's easy to first jump in and just try to solve that immediate problem so we can move on to our next task list within the day. But really taking the time to develop or reestablish that rapport. Kind of checking in, maybe you knew that they had a competition recently, they're a student athlete, and kind of asking them about that game, or kind of connecting with upcoming campus events. And then as you kind of go through, having a nice clear agenda and flow for that student interaction. So one of the things kind of mentioned was reviewing kind of what happened during the last meeting. Maybe we're going to be talking a little bit more about making those different connections. So for instance, if you had connected them with somebody else, maybe I sent them over to talk to Melissa about a career interest, following back up with that, kind of talking with the student, and being able to review those potential action items. Then kind of going from there, making sure that we're focusing on the purpose of the meeting. There's probably some other things coming up in there, but we want to make sure that we are grounding ourselves in what was the purpose of this meeting as well, and making sure that we are finding a good conclusion within that. And with that, making sure as we're closing out that particular session, taking the time to summarize everything that we have discussed, and then making sure that we're outlining those potential action items, whether that's on the student or kind of making sure if we are doing referral, that we're helping them through that process and not kind of ending that conversation with, oh, go to career services for resume advice, and maybe helping them through where are they located? What are their open hours? Maybe let's sit down real quick. Have you set up your Handshake account? Let's kind of get that appointment on the schedule. So we're making sure that we are kind of helping them through that. And overall, that successful one-on-one student meeting advising session is really a big factor in their student success. So making sure that we are taking the time and intentionally structuring these interactions can really aid in that process.
So there is the ideal situation, and then there's like what really happens, right, in these interactions. Because oftentimes the students that we have coming to see us they might be overwhelmed. They might be kind of confused as far as what they want to be doing or what should their next steps be. And so then I think that behooves us then to kind of ask some guiding questions to see what is underneath that confusion or that overwhelm. because they may not have the right questions that they need to be asking because they're already overwhelmed with too much information. So how can we help them to, or like get more information from them to understand then how we can guide them to their next steps? So we can ask some questions such as, what did you like or dislike about a certain classroom or lab, work, volunteer experience? So in many cases, we'll get students in career services who are mechanical engineer. That's a very broad category of things that you can do with that degree. And so I might ask them about some of their classes. What did you like? In other words, I'm guiding them to understand if they really like the research and development, or did they really like the hands-on work that they actually did? What kind of, because of the nature of so much of the coursework that happens here at Tech, there's a lot of room to kind of explore what actually their experiences were and really grab the nuggets of information from those experiences. We can also ask things like if they have an idea of what kind of job that they would like to do, that they might be interested in, ask another guiding question. What kind of skills would be necessary for you to be a good candidate for that job? And that can help them work backward, like to say, all right, if these are the skills I would need, what classes do I need to take to help me get those skills? What essential education experience could I look at that would help me really get some more hands-on experience in that field so that I can really explore if I like that or not? Who do you know, or who have you talked to about that? We would really like to encourage individual students to reach out to people that are doing the jobs that they're interested in doing, or doing the research, or those who have gone to grad school, and what are the benefits of that? What were the pros and cons? What were the challenges? What do I need to do now to set myself up to get there? Also, do you know that this department offers these resources? So this is another way to kind of expand out of our offices and to connect with the people that are doing the job so that we don't have to feel like we're doing it all alone. So again, getting to know what kind of resources are available will really help us to communicate that to students. So then, inspiring curiosity, thank you, Tiffany, for bringing that up, because I feel like that's a very, very important thing. Oftentimes, there is this kind of adage that you need to know what you're passionate about, but actually finding your passion can be really difficult. It's quite challenging. Like, I don't even know if I can locate what or understand or really know what my passions are. But I can answer the question, what am I curious about? What are you curious about? It's like our whole physiology changes when we ask that question in comparison to what are you passionate about? It's like you can kind of ease into finding out the answer to that question. So what kind of things, how can we guide students into curiosity? I really like this question, posing this question, what problems do I want to solve? So they might not know what work that they want to do, but they might have an understanding of what things are important to them, what kind of problems that they want to solve, and how can I engage in solving that problem? What are my values? Oftentimes values align with the types of problems that they want to solve. So if we can kind of encourage them to sit back, sit with themselves, reflect, and really understand what they value, that can really be a strong guiding force. What comes naturally to me? Oftentimes people, not just students, we don't fully appreciate, I think, that the skills and the gifts and talents and abilities that we are born with are actually strengths that we can use, and that we don't have to always claw away and fight so hard at learning a skill that we might not be as good at and feel like that's what we have to do in order to be successful. So if we can kind of, again, encourage students to think about, what am I naturally good at? What do people ask me for? Maybe I'm a really good organizer. Maybe I'm a really good problem solver. Maybe I'm a really good communicator and my friends ask me to do X, Y, or Z. That's a really good indication of what your natural abilities are. And then, of course, how do I define success? Success means different things to different people. So if we can help students kind of get to the bottom of where they feel they want to go and what makes them feel successful, that can also kind of narrow down some of their choices from being overwhelmed with so many things to have to choose from.
So, with all of that, there's a lot of exciting choices within essential education. And depending on a student's major and overall curriculum, essential ed may be the area where they're making some of the most kind of choices and have some of the most agency within their curriculum as well. So we want to take a moment to kind of think about how we can leverage that as we're interacting with students, whether you're an advisor going through your degree requirements, or maybe running into a student at a local farmer market, and maybe you know that there's this exciting essential ed experience that would be available for students that maybe they could integrate into their degree requirements too. So as we're kind of thinking about some of those questions that we'd be asking that Melissa posed, how can we use that to help students make informed choices? So on your tables, you also have this outline in case this is a little bit smaller, just kind of showing some of those requirements within essential education. And you're looking at 13 main components. So within the first year, they have some additional choice within a kind of area called Foundations of the Human World. But even more so, looking at the ability to incorporate an essential education minor into their curriculum. So potentially, if we're thinking about what types of problems somebody wants to solve, and maybe they're kind of going back to sustainability, maybe incorporating that sustainability studies minor would add a lot of value and be really meaningful for that student to do. Or they're coming out of high school and they knew that they were a leader in a lot of these different student orgs and they want to develop those skills a little bit more. Let's take a look at that leadership minor. Or especially, even if we're not looking at minors in particular, but thinking about how to incorporate those areas within the essential education experience, let's think about those problems that you want to solve and let's put some of that to action so we can maybe work on solving some problems within our local community as well. And then I think overall, looking at the program, inputting more areas for reflection and incorporating those kind of like thinking through the essential abilities and bringing that into our conversations will help to kind of further all of those interactions.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to come back over here. So kind of one last big point that I wanted to highlight, we've talked about asking students questions and inspiring their curiosity and trying to help connect them where they want to go. And I guess if you take nothing else away from the things that I want to share, I guess, we each kind of have our main point. My main point is actually about the warm handoff. And I know that a lot of us are good at this with students, and I know that this takes time. But kind of the reminder that I want to give everybody is that students sometimes will come to you, and you might be, again, one of their instructors, you might be a staff member that they know, they might volunteer with your organization, they're coming to you because you're a trusted person. And sometimes you get these interactions, I'm sure we have all heard versions of this. I went and talked to so-and-so and they weren't helpful. Okay, right, so then we're coming back to some of the questions like Melissa was posing. Okay, well, what did you ask? What were you looking for? How was that going? I looked online, I went on the website and I couldn't find the thing. The kind of this very frustrated feeling like they're being bounced around kind of experience. Or I don't know, I was just told to come see you. They told me to go to career services, right? So what can we do? Again, multiple people have touched on this, help them understand what they're asking. Just a couple of weeks ago, I helped a student out in career services who came and insisted to me that another office on campus was unhelpful, had told them all the wrong information. And it turned out they didn't ask the right question of that office in the first place. So of course they got an answer that didn't make sense to them. Contextualize any response that they might have received. Help them understand and explain it when you can, right? And explore when you can't. And again, I think this especially goes when students come in and they're feeling frustrated. You know, how can we help them maybe unpack what they're actually trying to get at and how we can help them? And when we can, send a quick email, make a quick phone call. You know, hey, I think that Melissa in Career Services could help you. I'm going to call her really quick and see if she's free this afternoon before you walk over there. Or, hi, quick email to connect you with so-and-so. I have a student here who's got a question. Sending the student to go meet them in a warm, handed-off kind of way, rather than just referring them nebulously out into the void to another office, right? And again, that takes time. It's not going to be every day that you have time to walk someone upstairs or walk them from a walker to the admin building, right? But when we can, what can we do to make those handoffs a little warmer and be a sort of more outright connected campus in the eyes of the students? I think a lot of times students, they don't understand the inner workings and the different roles in a campus the way that we all do because we work here every day, right? To a student, if you're their academic advisor, they're going to assume that you know everything about every class they want to take, their major, every minor on campus, their financial aid situation. Like, they might think that you just know everything. And we tend in our own departments to get really focused on how we help students. And that's good, right? We each have the things that we need to do. I'm not saying that there's no specialization or that every department's not different and special, but more what I mean is I think it's important for us to take the time to get to know more people across campus so we can connect them better in a more active way. And again, that interdisciplinary work of essential education and, you know, all of us trying to be in this for the students, and also knowing folks out in the community that we can connect them with, I think is just really, it makes a big difference in how they interact with us and how they see the results of those interactions, rather than, oh, I got a referral and they told me to go ask financial aid. It's like, no, I encourage you to go talk to Andy and here's his email address, right? That kind of thing. So that's kind of on that point. I think.
Okay. So we have, we're going to ask you to work in groups, and we have a couple of scenarios that we have. We hope that they're pretty realistic and things, situations and scenarios that you would actually meet as a staff member or anybody who works with students for that matter. If you are separate, it would be most helpful to at least have 2 people. So if you're singled out at a table, if you could join another group, that would be ideal. And I will just be handing them out, and you will have, what time is it?
It's 5 till, so
It's about 10 minutes to kind of work through these, and we'd like to hear back from you afterward. Okay, all right, we're going to pull back together here for a moment. And we would like a table to volunteer to tell us the scenario and what kind of solutions or ideas did you come up with? Who would like to go first? All right. Whichever one you want to talk about. Yep.
We have a student with multiple interests. Do I read out the note?
Sure. Yeah.
A second-year mechanical engineering student is uninterested in taking classes outside of their field of study. The student likes math, engineering problem solving, physics, and everything technical. They feel that shape classes are comparatively boring, a waste of their time, and do not contribute to their goal of becoming a mechanical engineer. So some of the questions that we were wanting to ask the student was, how do you plan to compete with mechanical engineers who enjoy these classes and use these skills to get internships and co-ops and all their different skills? There's a lot of soft skills that you can learn while you're in these classes, and outside of these classes, like if you're taking MEP that's required as a mechanical engineering student, what are you doing for those progress reports? So trying to take the skills that they should be learning in those shapes classes and applying them back to the technical classes that they absolutely still have to practice these communication skills in. And also trying to compare, you're not getting a fully rounded education if you're ignoring or slacking off or not enjoying these classes, right? And then the other question that we would ask them is like, why are you taking this class then? Like, are you taking it because it fits your schedule, because your friends like it, because someone on Reddit said it was easy? Like, are you doing it because you're interested in the subject, or are you doing it because it was quote unquote the easiest class on Read My Professor? Like, that is the kind of question that we're trying to ask to make them think critically about why they're here, but also what are they getting out of it? Because you're going to have to take those 3 credits anyway. You might as well do it with something that you enjoy. So, thank you.
Does anyone else have that scenario that they'd like to add? Any additional points? Yeah. Yeah.
I guess we were thinking more along the lines of, you know, for a lot of ours, we're a PE heavy table over here. So PE is near and dear to our hearts. Learning some skills that you can take forward to keep yourself healthy in the future, and knowing that beyond school there will be hours that you need to fill, and might as well learn something lifelong to keep yourself healthy, so you don't end up at 40 stressed out and not in good health, and you have a heart attack, and then, you know, life is not good. So to us, PE is near and dear to our hearts. So obviously there's other classes in the shape realm, but there's a lot of offerings in there, and we have a lot of students that come from various areas that maybe they don't get snow, they've never had a chance to ski, they've not been around water. We have a lot of international students that come, and they can't swim. So that'd be a good skill. We are surrounded by water, so it's a safety issue as well. Knowing there are limits in the water and being able to learn those lifelong skills and being able to enjoy themselves.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. And sorry, Melissa. Thanks, Amy and Anderson, for kind of sharing those. And I think that's really important, and maybe having some of those conversations, whether that's looking at building some of those life skills as kind of part of that essential education opportunity, or as kind of Anderson was also sharing as well, looking at those other skills that are also important. So even framing that back to looking at the essential abilities, the NACE competencies, and really kind of framing this as this is something that industry is looking for, and also highlighting when a student's talking to you, they're likely trusting you as kind of that mentor. So how you convey that importance and then having that conversation is also going to dictate maybe that student experience and their values with it too. So really leading as that role model, as kind of Maria mentioned at the beginning of herself, embracing welcoming challenge.
Do we have time for another?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anybody else would like to share? Yep, Amy.
So we have the one on, it said a 3rd-year pre-health student you work with is considering an experience that would take them off campus and delay their graduation by 1 semester. You can choose co-op, study away, internship, or long-term volunteer appointments. They're unsure if the experience will be worth the delay, since they have always been told they need to finish college in 4 years. And so we did kind of talk about all of the different options: co-op, study away, internship, or long-term volunteer. And went through a list of resources on campus. Where should they be going? What should they be? Who should they be talking to? For starters, their program, it might not take them an extra semester. They might think it's going to because they're gone, but it might be that whatever they're doing can count towards their degree. So working through it with their advisor. If it is going to extend their time at school, then talking with financial aid so they have an understanding of what will happen with their scholarships. Because a lot of scholarships then are just extended because they're not taking that scholarship money for that semester, depending on what they're doing. Also, talking about what just the experience, what that experience is going to bring for them. that this is their time, and what is that experience bringing to their college career. And then that 4-year rule, they're coming to us from high school where if you didn't finish in 4, you'd fail. You failed something. And so explaining to them college doesn't work that way. And when you graduate, no one cares if it took you 4 or 4.5. Just what did you do to get to the end, right? And what that experience was. So, taking that time to form. Is there anything else that I missed?
Yeah, thank you. I think that helping students to connect with the experiences that they would get from this additional experience and how that translates later on into whether it's career or additional studies will also kind of help them weigh out the pros and the cons of making that decision for sure.
We have time for a brief share on like one more. Do you want to pick your favorite?
Ooh, I wasn't expecting to be put on the spot, but I feel like one that I come across a lot in terms of students is maybe the overcommitted high achiever on campus.
So much nodding.
I see some nods, some good chuckles. Would anybody like to speak or kind of share what their table talked about in that case?
We talked about this. We had this one. We talked about helping the student talk through, why are they in all of those organizations? What do they get out of them? Are they enjoying them? Do they feel obligated or passionate? Trying to talk to them about often less is more, that if you're pulled across too many different things, you're probably not giving your all to all of those things. We talked a little bit about it's important to have something that gives you joy and is a social outlet, and often overcommitted students will let go of the thing that gives them fun and joy because they feel like the importance is on the others. And personally, I feel like the joy is very important, and that eliminating the one that brings them joy is not going to reduce their burnout. It's probably going to make it worse. Trying to help them connect the organizations that they're in and the things they're spending outside of the classroom on, how that connects to their future goals. What is their future goal? What do they want to be doing post-graduation? And how are these things helping them get there? And really talking with them through all of that, and hopefully guiding them to the conclusion that they don't need to be in all of these organizations or outside things to be successful. We talked a little bit about, do they have a perception that they have no choice because they committed to these orgs and they can't step back, and helping them understand that these are all choices and that they do have the option to take a step back, and help them maybe devise a good communication plan for that, and how they can step away from some of the things they need to step away from.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. So I think with a lot of this, that conversation could lead to a lot of the other scenarios, maybe being unhappy within a major, weighing different opportunities with an internship, and really kind of thinking about how maybe some of those things they're committed to may be leveraged within their curriculum as well. But want to share just a few final messages before we part ways into the next session. On one of the previous slides, there's a quick QR code, and that kind of links to some additional resources on how to frame some of those student interactions or specifically advising sessions. That will be available on the Canvas course. So when you get that link, we'll be kind of sharing these slides, some summaries, and some of those links to additional resources. But we also, before we say goodbye, I want to give you a little preview or some suggestions for the rest of your symposium experience.
Yeah, so I guess just to wrap us up here, and then we'll let everybody go. One, again, we talked about some different frameworks from NACADA, which is the advising professional community, from NACE, which is a career services and employer professional community, and the importance of these skills and these essential abilities as students embark into graduate school and into career. Just be on the lookout for how we're going to dig into that in the closing panel, right? We're going to hear from some industry folks and some of our leadership on campus about that from a much more directly, end of the pipeline, heading out into career kind of lens. And I think kind of the last thing here, again, in the spirit of welcoming challenge and warm handoffs and extending our roots across campus, I think if it's okay, I'm going to do one last interactive thing. I want everybody to stand up really quick. And then you're going to be poised to go wherever you're going next. Okay, we're going to preface this. This is going to be a little awkward. I want you to lean into it. I want you to look around the room until you make eye contact with a person here you do not know, and just give them a little wave. You don't have to do anything. I'm not going to say you have to go and meet them right now. Just make eye contact with someone you do not know and give them a little friendly wave. Your challenge for today from all of us is to meet somebody new, keep making those connections so that we can all be part of this branching effort to support all of our students. So that's my closing thought. Anything else, Melissa?
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.